What is up, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Thank you guys so much for being here. Tonight, WWE Bad Blood comes to us from my former hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, which is why I have an Austin Theory Live, which is also signaled to Atlanta. Plus, there's a message on the back of my shirt that I really love. Words are very important to me. But today, in honor of Atlanta, I have this on. And today, I am here to give you my top 10 favorite matches that have actually happened in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as reminding you that there is a top 10 Hell in a Cell matches that I did earlier this week. Be sure to check that out. But before we get to tonight's Bad Blood, which I hope CM Punk wins, let's get into some historic matches that happened in my former hometown. Next, we'll start at number 10. We have Goldberg versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan NWO version at Monday Nitro, WCW Monday Nitro at July 6, 1998. This was the night that Goldberg would win his first World Heavyweight Championship. He was already U.S. champion, but he would become World Heavyweight Champion that night in the Georgia Dome, now the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Hopefully SummerSlam or WrestleMania goes there. But that time, it was the Georgia Dome, where Goldberg, former Atlanta Falcons player, would win the championship, and thus WCW would win the ratings war that night. Next, at number 9, we have The Big Show versus Sheamus at Hell in a Cell pay-per-view 2012. Honestly, this match was better than the main event of Ryback versus CM Punk Hell in a Cell, actually, ironically. Plus, Brad Maddox ruined the whole darn thing. But in any event, this match was the match of the night, in my personal opinion. It was for the World Heavyweight Championship, the same World Heavyweight Championship that was originated in WCW. Sheamus was the champion, and he had a great match with The Big Show. And Sheamus was the first to kick out of the KO punch. It took not one, but two KO punches to keep Sheamus down, and Big Show would win the World Heavyweight Champion, becoming one of the only superstars to win the WWE, the Undisputed and World Heavyweight Champion, as well as the ECW and WCW Championship. At number 8, we continue in what now is the State Farm Arena, formerly known as the Phillips Arena. This was the Royal Rumble, one of my all-time favorite Royal Rumble matches in 2002. Now, when you think of the Royal Rumble match 2002, it was Star Power. This match had just about everybody, the very best of the Attitude Era, from Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and of course, the eventual winner, Triple H. We saw Booker T and the late great Mr. Perfect in the match as well. This match was awesome. Of course, The Undertaker doesn't want to remember this night because that was the night he got embarrassed and eliminated by an up-and-coming tough enough winner, Maven. And of course, it was a funny segment where The Undertaker ate popcorn after beating him up. Hopefully there was no glass caught in that popcorn because he threw Maven's head through the cage. Of course, we must talk about the winner of that match was Triple H, and he would go on to WrestleMania to win the Undisputed Championship from Chris Jericho, who had a great match that night against The Rock. Next on this list, 8 years later, we have at the Royal Rumble 2010, we have The Undertaker versus Rey Mysterio for the, once again, Atlanta loves that championship. but it is for the World Heavyweight Championship. And you know what I just realized when someone made a comment on a video in YouTube, and it opened my eyes to something. Because keep in mind, the WWE Championship was a spinner belt that was originated by John Cena. However, the World Heavyweight Championship was a SmackDown Championship. And it makes sense why The Undertaker from 2007 all the way to 2010 went for that championship instead of the WWE Championship. Because much like The Rock, Undertaker is old school and doesn't believe the championship should be treated like a spinner toy. Therefore, The Undertaker went for this instead of the WWE Championship. And he defended it against Rey Mysterio in what was an actually good match. On paper, it seemed like it would have been a mixed match, but it wasn't. Both guys were fan favorites, and The Undertaker won the match with the last ride. And you could see through a busted nose that The Undertaker had been in a fight, surviving several versions of the 619. Next, we go to TNA. No, not yet. Next, we go to, at number 6, at the State Farm Arena, now known, a 5-way match that included Big E, who was the WWE champion, Seth freaking Rollins, right there, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, who will soon be going to AEW, and of course the winner, Brock Lesnar, for the WWE Championship. It was a great 5-way match. So much happened in less than 15 minutes in that match. But in the end, it was Brock Lesnar who actually pinned the champion Big E to win the WWE Championship in Atlanta. And the reason this match actually happened because it was scheduled to be Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. However, Roman Reigns had caught COVID and had to stay home. So they had to come up with a plan B, which actually ended up being a good plan B. And a lot of great matches happened that night. Also, we had Edge versus The Miz. And of course, the Usos versus the New Day, renewing their tag team rivalry. Next on this list at number 5, we have Kurt Angle versus Sting from TNA Wrestling at Bound for Glory 2007. And this took place just up 85 from State Farm Arena, up 85 in Duluth, Georgia, for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And this was a great match. And for whatever reason, Kevin Nash, who was aligned with Kurt Angle, got involved in the match. But that didn't stop anything because Sting would go on to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship from then champion Kurt Angle. Excuse me. At number 4, the next 2 matches on this countdown took place at Backlash earlier that year in 2007. Now, wrestling really must have really loved Atlanta because Bound for Glory was in Duluth and Backlash earlier that year was in the Phillips Arena. And 2 of those matches were awesome. We'll start with the first one being for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was Batista versus The Undertaker in a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, a rematch from WrestleMania 23, a match that The Undertaker had won. So The Undertaker came in as the champion. And of course, it was a great match. Announce tables broke, steel chairs, stairs. And of course, it went up the entrance ramp. And as The Undertaker was getting ready to go for the tombstone, Batista would spear Randy Orton. Not Randy Orton. Batista would spear The Undertaker off the ramp, causing the stage pieces to fall, and the match would become a draw. So even though there was not a decisive winner, the match in itself was still awesome. Both guys were crowd favorites, but The Undertaker was the bigger favorite. However, this match, though a draw, was still awesome. Later on that night, we had a decisive winner. At number 3 was John Cena, WWE Champion, versus Randy Orton, versus Edge, versus Shawn Michaels. This match was a fatal 4-way match for the WWE Championship, the spinner belt. At the time, I thought the spinner belt was cool, but there were a lot of old school people who wanted to go back to tradition. However, in this match, it was a great fatal 4-way match. But if you're going to talk about the 4-way match, you got to talk about the ending, because so much stuff happened towards the end, including John Cena going for an AA, Shawn Michaels giving John Cena the sweet chin music, causing John Cena to fall on top of one of these guys for the 1, 2, 3, and John Cena unintentionally was able to pin someone and retain his WWE Championship. Next, at number 2, we go way back in time to when the Philips Arena was at the time the Omni Arena. And this was a match that involved 2 WCW legends and classic performers. Ric Flair, woo, versus Sting. Woo! I can't. That was my best try. I almost blew my voice out trying to do Sting's version. But in any event, this match was an Iron Man tournament match that ended with Ric Flair, who was the world champion, against Sting. By the way, most of us remember that Sting and Ric Flair, not too long ago, had a almost 45-minute classic that ended in a draw when he fought for the World Heavyweight Championship. But in this match, it was a non-title match for the Iron Man to become the Iron Man tournament winner. And in less than 20 seconds, before we go any further, can I just point out the fact that Sting is the only person who is numb to chops. Undertaker isn't numb to chops. I don't know if Sting would be numb to Gunther's chops, but he was numb to Flair's chops every time. And in this particular match, he was numb again. But with 20 seconds remaining on the clock, Sting was able to put Ric Flair in the Scorpion Deathlock. No, excuse me. It was a roll-up pin, 1, 2, 3 for the win in the main event of Starrcade Super Shock, Future Shock 1989. Before we get into my number 1 pick for great matches in Atlanta, I would like to give an honorary mention, which would be the Brothers of Destruction taking on the Wyatt family at Undertaker's 25th anniversary in 2015. But let's get to what is number 1. Number 1 on this list, the winner of the 2002 Royal Rumble, Triple H, versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta, Georgia Dome. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion, my humble opinion. The only reason this match was not the main event of that night, and it should have been, but the only reason this match was not on the main event was because The Rock, the final boss, was the special guest enforcer of the main event between The Miz and John Cena. That is the only reason that match was not main event, because that match, as great as it was, should have been the main event. The only bittersweet fact to this was The Undertaker, though he won through submission, was unable to walk out of the ring on his own power, which would lead to a rematch in Miami, Florida, inside Hell in a Cell the very next year. Nonetheless, great entrance by Triple H, but in the end, The Undertaker won the match, defeating Triple H for the second time at WrestleMania 10 years later, by the way. And they would go on again next year to fight inside Hell in a Cell for a clean sweep for The Undertaker. So, that's my list. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite match that happened in Atlanta, Georgia? I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and that's all the time I have for you today. Let's hope and pray that CM Punk wins tonight. I'm your host, Daniel Cody. See you next time. Darn.